Welcome to Giants Latest. The free agency frenzy has been nothing short of crazy. This week is going to be all sorts of fun, but the Giants made a very important move and an exciting one, so let's talk about it. They have signed a veteran cornerback, Paulson Adebo, to a 3-year deal. Now, as of right now, the deal is 3 years, $54 million. It's $18 million a year with 36 of that 54 guaranteed. He is 25 years old, 6'1", and 192 pounds. And he was drafted in 2021 to the Saints and has been with them up until now when he became a free agent. Now, the downside to Adebo is that he is coming off of a broken femur. So he missed some of the season last year, and this deal is all pending a physical, assuming obviously that goes well. Now, I have seen videos of him training and in rehab, and it looks like, fingers crossed, he's going to be good to go. Now, I think this was a great signing. Do I have a little bit of concern about the money? Sure. It's not my money. It doesn't really matter. It depends on what Joe Schoen does the rest of free agency before I start saying that he's a lunatic for overpaying people. So I'll hold off on that for now. But a couple stats about Adebo that I think, for those of you who were like, who on earth is this guy and why have I heard nothing about him? I will give you some stats that will make you feel better, because at first I was like, he wasn't one of my top 3 corners that I wanted in free agency, but the more I hear about him, and the more I see, I like. If you would like to see some good plays that he has made over the years, check out Nick Filato or Bobby Skinner on Twitter. They have both posted some great clips. So PFF New York Giants tweeted, Paulson Adebo over the past 2 seasons has had 29 forced incompletions, which is first in the NFL, which is wild. 7 interceptions. He's tied for 4th, and that's in just 22 games. So this is obviously a guy that is talented, and when he's healthy, he makes plays on the field. Now, obviously, the biggest concern, of course, is that he's coming off this injury, and we know the Giants' history with all of their injuries with their players. So I'm going to be optimistic about this one. I do think he's going to be a good fit. I am excited to see how Shane Bowen uses him. I think the biggest thing about this is how it's going to impact Deonte Banks, and I think it's going to impact him in the best way possible. Let's hope, like I said, that we see that come to life based on how Bowen uses them in the system this year. But I will say I feel a heck of a lot better about our corners now than I did about 24 hours ago. So again, getting a veteran in the building was very important. It was one of my top priorities in free agency, and I am glad that Joe Schoen has done it. Now, it's not the only player that they have signed. It's the only player that they have signed that was not formerly a Giant. So some of the other moves, or the players that they have re-signed over the weekend, include the punter, Jamie Gillen, who's actually coming off his best year as a Giant. Prior to this, he was a little inconsistent when it comes to punting. But he had a great year last year, and I think it was the right move to bring him back. He has a 3-year deal worth a little bit over $10 million. So let's hope that Jamie Gillen can continually be consistent this year. He's not the only one they brought back. They also re-signed Chris Manhertz to a 1-year deal. And I have to say, I was a little bit surprised about this. He is a good blocking tight end, and he did a nice job with the Giants this year. I just didn't think he would be back, but I don't think it's a bad move at all. I think now they have Daniel Bellinger, Theo Johnson, Chris Manhertz, and I'm sure that over the summer they will probably bring in some other tight ends that get released from other teams like they do every summer to bring in some competition to the position. So I'm excited to see what other changes they make. The last and final signing that they have made up until this point is outside linebacker Tomon Fox. Now, this is another one that I was a little surprised by because he's mostly been a practice squad guy. He hasn't been wildly impactful when he's been on the field, but he's got a couple sacks and he's made a couple plays when he was out there. Ultimately, I think he's probably going to be a practice squad guy, but my biggest concern and gripe with this front office is the fact that they really don't have a lot of depth. So I think bringing in Tomon Fox, it's probably a pretty cheap deal. I haven't seen the money behind it yet, but it likely is a very cheap deal. And look, when it comes to depth, that is important. So I'm glad to see that Tomon Fox is back. Next up, the question will be, what do they do about Azeez Ojulari? We will find out soon enough. But before I hear about Azeez, I better hear about them signing a right guard, because this is a necessity. It is the top 3 that they must do in free agency. Obviously, they don't even have a starting right guard. So let's make this a priority, Joe. And there have been a lot of signings today that have included a lot of defensive linemen, which I know we've talked about, and some offensive linemen are off the market. So the good news is that Mekhi Becton is still available. And so is Brandon Scherf. Kevin Zeitler is still available. There are definitely options for the Giants at right guard, which I think is great because I think they're not feeling like they're backed into a corner to sign one, I hope. Now, like I said, Mekhi Becton is still my number one. Take him off the Eagles' hands, please. Do not let them re-sign him. They already lost 2 defensive players today. Let them lose him too, please. We'll take all the help that we can get when it comes to offensive linemen. And I think Mekhi Becton is the guy. And look, if you have to pay him a little bit more money, then so be it. This is the one area that I think is worth overpaying a little bit. Ultimately, free agency is what it is. Players get a lot more money than, some people think they should or what their market value is. It is what it is. This is how it works. So if they have to overpay a little bit for Mekhi Becton, that's a signing that I actually would feel really good about. So I'd be on board with that. So Becton, Scherf, Dalton Reisner is still available. Kevin Zeitler, again, there are a ton of options out there. So I hope that Joe Schoen is getting to work because this is a need. They do not have a starting right guard, and it is a position that they so desperately need a good veteran player there. I think it will do numbers for someone like John Michael Schmitz, who also has been up and down throughout his career with the Giants. He's still young, has time to learn. And if he has some steady play on the right side of him, I think he can trust John Runyon at this point on the left. If he can trust Mekhi Becton or whoever it is that's not named Devin Neal or Joshua Zudu on the right side, it should be extremely helpful for him. But now something else we have to talk about is the quarterbacks, because the quarterbacks in free agency have been crazy. So let's do a quick little rundown so we could talk about who's still available for the Giants. So Justin Fields just signed a 2-year, $40 million deal with the Jets. He got $30 million guaranteed. Sam Darnold signed a 3-year, $110 million deal with the Seahawks. Matt Stafford is staying with the Rams. We knew that. Who else? What are some other quarterbacks? I feel like there have been quite a bit of quarterback movement today, but there are still 2 veteran quarterbacks that are available that may or may not be in the works with the Giants. One of them is Aaron Rodgers, which I know some of you really don't want to hear, and the other one is Russ Wilson. Now, when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, there has been a lot of talk today that the Steelers are very close to signing Rodgers. It's almost done. However, it's mid-afternoon and it's still not done yet. So I don't know what the holdup is. I don't know if the Giants are really in the mix right here. Twitter has been up and down all day. So there hasn't been a huge update on that other than it sounds like it's close between the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers. So let's just say hypothetically, Aaron Rodgers goes to the Steelers. Russ Wilson is probably going to be the other quarterback that is in the most demand. Now, there are guys like Daniel Jones, who obviously is not coming back to New York, Jameis Winston, and Joe Flacco. So you've got 3 other guys, Carson Wentz, which God help us if Carson Wentz comes here, but I think that out of that list, probably Russ Wilson is the best option. At the end of the day, he's going to be a bridge quarterback, and it's probably going to be a 1-year deal. I think Justin Fields was the only person out of all those quarterbacks that was going to be getting a multi-year deal. So I think whether it's Aaron Rodgers or Russ Wilson or Jameis Winston or Joe Flacco, it's a 1-year deal. He is a bridge guy to help mentor and teach the rookie, and then the rookie is going to take over maybe at some point in 2025 or 2026. So I have been very anti-Aaron Rodgers. I have talked about it on here. He just, for a multitude of reasons. And if he goes to the Steelers, it is what it is. I think that Russ Wilson will be fine here. My thing with Rodgers is, I have a lot of things with Rodgers, but I ultimately feel like if they brought in Rodgers, it doesn't automatically mean that we're going to win 8 games. I think that regardless of who the quarterback is on this team this year, it's just not going to be very good. And that's my opinion. If you disagree with me, by all means, go right ahead. I think if you brought in Rodgers and Adams, I could say I'd feel better about them winning 8 games, maybe a little bit more than that. But I still just feel like the way this roster is at, the way the coaching is, like there's so many question marks for me that just bringing in a quarterback doesn't automatically make this team a really good football team. Makes them better, of course it does. But it doesn't mean that they're going to go from 3 wins to 8. So big jump there, especially, when we talk about the positions of need in free agency and of course what they have to do in the draft. So that's where we're at with the quarterback situation. It's obviously going to change. We're going to have some sort of information in the next 48 hours. So make sure you stay tuned. There is more to come.